Are we really alone in the universe? In the next hour, you'll see extraordinary footage that many believers consider as hard evidence that we're being visited by an alien civilization. Most of this footage has never been seen on television before. We must warn you, if the footage and testimony you're about to see is real, it's perhaps the most important discovery of our time.
The Air Force itself has officially admitted that flying saucers exist.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
When I first got to look inside the craft, all I can say, it's an ominous feeling. Right now, there's physical proof, actual crafts and technology from another world. That's probably the most important event in history.
Hi, I'm James Doohan. In the next hour, we'll examine the controversial evidence and theories that suggest we're not alone in the universe. If these theories prove to be true, the implications are staggering. In recent times, there have been more reported UFO sightings than ever before. For centuries, these crafts have remained a mystery until now. The footage you're about to see is a startling photographic account that sheds light on the greatest question of our century. Are we really alone? In the past decade, over 15 million people have reportedly witnessed extraterrestrial craft. What's more remarkable is that contemporary science has ignored the evidence that for thousands of years has been in plain sight. Recently in Mexico City, millions of astonished onlookers watched as these and other craft hovered over their city for hours. It was the largest mass UFO sighting in history. Mexican officials even held press conferences asking the public to remain calm. What's more amazing is that these sightings are still occurring even today. In what may be one of the most revealing interviews of our time, nuclear physicist Bob Lazar speaks candidly about his top-secret work at the government's saucer research facility known as Area S4. In 1989, he was hired by the military to back-engineer the propulsion system of an extraterrestrial craft.
Obviously, the ET craft do exist. Something had to build them, so there must be aliens. And since there are, and the craft are there must be some sort of factory and an entire civilization somewhere. And if in fact that is true, and it apparently is, then there must be others.
Contact cases are by far the rarest type of UFO sighting. In these instances, a ship or a number of ships are repeatedly sighted by a single witness over an extended period of time. Over the last several years, a Miami resident named Adrienne had what is now considered one of the best documented contact cases in history. At first, the sightings began occurring at some distance from his home, but it wasn't long before the craft began appearing over his backyard. This amazing video footage shows a glowing disc approximately 9 feet in diameter hovering just feet from his house. In a blink of an eye, the craft disappears. Once the footage is slowed down, we can clearly see the craft dematerialize frame by frame. Adrienne's contact case took place over a period of several years and was never reported to the authorities for fear of ridicule and reprisals. Among the numerous hours of footage taken, this sighting remains one of the most dramatic. It began at 10:03 p.m. on October the 20th, 1995, and took place over a 50-minute period. The encounter ended with Adrienne following the craft at high speeds down the freeway. Here we see the craft minutes after the sighting begins. This extraordinary footage has never been broadcast and is being shown here for the first time. Clearly, we can see the craft hovering silently over the homes below. These large crafts are commonly referred to as beam ships, or in some cases, motherships. They gained their reputation by their reported immense size and softly glowing light emitted by the craft's operation. Approximately 38 minutes into the sighting, the ship began hovering away from his house. He followed the craft in his car and stopped along the freeway to film it hovering near an apartment complex. Minutes later, the craft flew directly over Miami's International Airport, where it hovered momentarily. The ship then flew into a residential area and accelerated out of sight. As the craft emerged from a wooded field, he was able to continue videotaping, but it wasn't long before it began accelerating again. While pacing it at over 50 miles an hour, it flew off out of sight. This slow motion enhancement clearly shows the craft as it's speeding along the shoreline. To this day, Adrien maintains he is still experiencing the reoccurring sightings. When you hear the term UFO, most people think of a classic flying saucer or disc-shaped craft. But what you are about to see is an amazing series of unidentified flying objects that don't fit the typical description of an alien craft. Because of their size, these first craft are believed to be unmanned. They are referred to as probes because they appear to be closely monitoring our activities. This cylindrical-looking probe was videotaped outside Las Vegas, Nevada, where it hovered in the air for over 4 hours. The next day, the probe returned and was videotaped examining the power lines. Eyewitnesses described this probe as having its own searchlight. It hovered over the same residential area in Florida for 3 days. A similar object was videotaped in the skies over the city of Kobe, Japan. This dramatic footage was taken in London. After the glowing disc hovers, it lands in a parking lot and releases a probe. After the disc disappears, the probe can be seen leaving in another direction. This never-before-seen footage was taken of a probe as it scanned the coastline of central Florida. Clearly, we can see it appears to be intelligently controlled. The probe's 2 sections rotated as it monitors the activities of the photographer. And yet another water sighting. This odd-shaped craft slowly descends to the water's surface, where after pausing for a moment, it slowly rises and departs. Another probe-shaped UFO makes its way across the Florida night skies. The footage was taken from the photographer's car as he tried to keep up with the object. This videotape of 2 similar UFOs made international headlines. Eyewitnesses watched in amazement as these craft performed acrobatic maneuvers and even dodged an oncoming airplane. Cigar-shaped crafts were first observed in Germany in 1561. Since then, they have frequently appeared in UFO sighting reports. This cigar-shaped craft was filmed hovering in Rhode Island in 1967. A similar elongated UFO was videotaped in 1980 in the skies over Hagen, Germany. These pictures of a cigar-shaped UFO were taken in California. This UFO was photographed in Earth's orbit. Crowds gathered in Krasnodar, Russia, to marvel at this luminous cigar-shaped UFO. This dramatic footage was later broadcast on Soviet television. The evidence is overwhelming. No single program in history has ever amassed such a compelling collection of footage. We'll use computer analysis, optical enhancement, and expert testimony to help bring the truth to light. But first, when did these sightings begin? The evidence suggests that mankind has been visited since the dawn of time. Recently, researchers point to one undeniable event that sparked the largest wave of sightings in history: the detonation of the atomic bomb. Unknowingly, we had sent an invitation to the universe, establishing ourselves as an advanced civilization.
The Air Force has officially analyzed the motives of possible visitors from space. Here is a direct quotation from the official report. Such a civilization might observe that on Earth we now have atomic bombs. We should therefore expect at this time above all to behold such visitation.
As early as 1947, alien craft began responding to our open invitation by arriving in large numbers. If advanced civilizations wanted to monitor our nuclear technology, New Mexico was the place to be. Because of its remote location, New Mexico was the site of the military's atomic research and testing. Post-war missile tests were conducted at White Sands, and Roswell was home to the only atomic bomber squad in the world. To date, the biggest day in Roswell's history remains, July 2nd, 1947, when Mac Brazel, a rancher who lived just outside of Roswell, was startled that evening by a loud explosion outside.